Hey guys and girls, Bored now back with you. On this video I will be talking about Paper Girls Season 1 Episode 7, which is called Some Kind of Burning Trash Hole, and Episode 8, the finale of the season, which is called It Be Over. Full spoilers from the start of this review, and once again I'm positive. I had a good time with these final two episodes. I'm hoping there's going to be another season. Once again, just solid stuff, not anything like earth-shattering or amazing, but the first episode is like just a setup episode with some good character drama. The second episode, it sort of goes full-blown sort of sci-fi into those ideas and some kind of wacky B-movie moments, along with some nice character moments as well. So you sort of had a balance in there. But so episode 1, just talking about what it set up and stuff. I'll start with Tiffany's plural, Tiffany past and present, if you like, or future, I guess, and their stuff, because they continue to have a bit of a disagreement, and that's because younger Tiffany is just baffled at why older Tiffany dropped out of MIT, why I guess in her mind she hasn't really made as much of herself as she could have done. She sort of questioned why she still lives in in the neighbourhood she grew up in, and that sort of thing. So she clearly doesn't have much of an opinion on the neighbourhood they grow in. And although, to be fair, it does seem like, because we sort of saw KJ go to that artsy sort of cinema in the last episode, but anyway, that's just a thing. But yeah, she's really digging into that, and you sensed there was going to be something a bit more to it. And there's a couple of big sort of there's one big revelation in this, and that's because younger Tiffany is challenging her over always talking bad about her mother, and there's this thing where older Tiffany keeps sort of putting the mother down, and she's pushed on this, and eventually she comes out and just says, you're adopted, you were given up. She's not the wonderful mother you think. And at first she doesn't accept this. She's storms off and is just furious, just doesn't want to believe it, thinks that future Tiffany is just saying this, it's just a heat of the moment. But later on, we don't really address that again, but you get the impression then she sort of has come to terms with it. But once again, a bit like some of the other revelations with some of the characters, very hard to accept this, especially finding it out this way through travelling to, still the future in this case, but 99. The other thing is, she confesses to younger Tiffany that she dropped out of MIT after the first year, and past Tiffany is really critical. It's I knew it. And once again, her anger, her determination, just how steadfast she is a really impressive character beat, where she just insists, it's not too late, you can still enroll for when it comes back, you've still got a chance. And there's just this whole feel and message from future Tiffany, where she's getting across to her younger self that you'll learn one day that things just don't always work out the way you dream of, that sometimes these institutions are kind of blocking progress and sort of obviously the racial sort of aspect has been played up quite a lot, so without really saying it, she has implied that there's racism and stuff. But yeah, just stuff like that. Then there's limitations, and that you can sort of branch out and do things on your own, and sometimes you just have to be independent. But there's sort of like a loggerhead sort of like clash between the two of them. Also, in this episode, KJ and Mac visit like her grave, because at the end of the last episode, Mac dropped that on KJ that she doesn't really have a future because she dies at 16. So they go to the grave and they're there for a while, and it's once again like KJ's sort of there for Mac. It's quite a sweet moment. And then someone else like shows up, and it's Mac's sister Alice. And this surprises Mac because they obviously didn't have that much of a relationship, and obviously it sort of freaks her out, and they try to escape. They bump into her at one point, I think, when she's in a car, and they like run off. But it's obviously a surprise because she never really got on with Alice, and yeah, never really expected her to be at a gravestone. But it's once again a decent enough scene. It's sort of like the sort of this thing colliding, like the future colliding with the past, if you like. But in any case, yeah, as I said, solid enough stuff. There's also Larry, who at the end of the last episode, the big cliffhanger was this portal opening in the sky, which appeared to be a fold-in, even though in theory the next one wasn't for another 7 years. So all this stuff came out of the sky, and it obviously was things like the bike, which we find out is Erin's bike, so from the 1980s, and also the newspaper from that time period. So he goes to the house, and at the time it's only Erin and like Tiffany's dopey boyfriend who's there. So he like tries to convince Erin to like come to the farm and help him, and that, well, just then he wants to show her really, and it's this funny sort of thing because Erin obviously doesn't know that it was Tiffany who contacted him. Like they went to see him on the farm like the previous day. So Erin is like, oh yeah, what's going on, what are you doing here? So that's sort of a funny scene. It's a good scene for Erin because she like dresses him down and says, you let us down, this sort of stuff. And she's actually turned into quite a rebellious sort of character as Erin. And again, I think it's partly this thing of how she's acted differently like as they've jumped through time. But anyway, like she has this good line to like the sort of like the slacker boyfriend of Tiffany's, where if you don't see me in 5 minutes, call the police, like. And he's like, what is going on? So in the end, she goes to the farm with Larry, and he shows her this stuff and what's coming through the sky. So he calls this woman who's getting married at the time. Well, not getting married, sorry, but she's trying on a wedding dress, and calls her, and it turns out she's a member of the STF Underground. So he needs her help. She comes, and at the time the others aren't there, but they later come because when they all return home, then they obviously, like, slacker guy tells them where. Then they've gone to the farm, or they went off, and they obviously know it's Larry, so they go to the farm. And this is where things sort of come to a head in at the end of the season, because the STF Underground girl starts telling them things and starts filling them in on exactly what's going on and how they can sort of fight it. And they haven't got long because the old Watcher are on their way. Like, I think she says, oh yeah, because they find a probe. There's this great sort of scene and shot at the end of the episode where there's like this probe which is under, like, I think it's like a broom or something, or under a bucket. Yeah, it's a bucket, and it's like moving about. And the episode just ends with her shooting it. Like, you get like the POV from the probe and it being shot, but that the probe basically is like transmitting pictures around the world to like all sort of, I don't know, timelines of old watches. So they say then the old Watcher are on their way, they'll only be an hour, so we have to get the heck out of here, basically. So that's the cliffhanger, and then the old Watch promptly arrive at the start of episode 8, and that's when things really go full on crazy B-movie, because you start getting things like dragons flying about, you get obviously the purple sky once again, you get like, so I don't know if it's like, no, because that was previously, but later on things get like full-blown sort of sci-fi. But yeah, you get this dragon and the girls go and hide, and they're also doing this mind warp thing where obviously like these girls don't necessarily want their mind warped, but because like older Tiffany is obviously where she needs to be, they decide, yeah, this is time to say goodbye for the two Tiffany's. But what she does is, before all this goes down, she writes details in the book and gives it to her, and it's just a way to remind herself of what happened, so that she remembers, even though she's had her mind sort of wiped. So you get that moment between the two Tiffany's, and then there's this standoff, and it's a good character moment for Larry, because he actually sacrifices himself for the girls, almost to make up for what happened previously. Like, they run and hide, and he's there, he like confronts the dragon and like saves them. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I did love the dragon things. And in the end it just kills him. Like, the dragon just like, because it's like he's threatening the dragon and to destroy it if like the old Watch don't let the girls go, but the dragon just like wipes Larry out, and it's like, well, okay, this is happening. But it's, once again, it's a good moment for Larry, you know, sort of doing the right thing and sacrificing himself. And there's some fun going on with like the villains, or you got, as I said, the Parks and Recs guy who's like the full-on villain. But then there's sort of layers as well going on, because like he's using this whole metaphor to do with the mixtape, where he's trying to justify like them trying to like wipe time and what have you, where he's just saying like the STF underground, their trouble is then they're like jumping all throughout time and trying to change things, and the trouble with this is it messes up the timeline, and eventually it will lead to the end of the world. So even though I think, you know, he's full of shit, and you know he's certainly acting in very extreme ways, then there's at least this sort of argument that this guy at least thinks he's doing the right, well, maybe not thinks he's doing the right thing. Like, I think you sort of know there's like a cynical side behind him, where in a way he just doesn't give a shit. But there's at least this sort of dialogue where he's coming out with these things, and he's presenting sort of an argument that his side is actually in the right type thing. But then you get like a conflict with him and Pyros, I think her name is, where she's kind of just wants the war to end and isn't sure then like killing these girls or going after them is the right thing. But there's some good stuff. There's some actual layers, and it's sort of good to see that she actually stands up for them and actually later like goes against the leader. But the leader guy is pretty funny. Like that his reaction to Larry being like killed, where he's sort of like, hey, that wasn't my fault, like I tried to stop that guy from getting like fried or whatever he says. So it's pretty funny. It's like, go and get the girls. But his whole delivery is like really funny. But yeah, then they have to come together. So you've had this stuff where they've been like separated, and they've had this division in the last few episodes, but now they have to come back, and they're being told by the Old Watch, then if you just give yourself over, we'll just wipe your memories. And like the villain guy, the Parks and Rec guy, is just saying, I won't kill you, I won't kill anyone, and it's certainly very unlikely if he can be trusted. But so at first they go and hide, and they're determined that they can change the future, and we don't need to give up to this guy. And Mac also tells them about her future death, because another thing about that is that KJ's trying to persuade her then maybe if we catch it in time, then maybe the future doesn't have to play out like this. Obviously in the future things have advanced where they can treat cancer more effectively, and maybe, who knows, I mean, maybe it's not too late. Maybe if we do it, then we would catch it in time. So, but anyway, Mac tells the rest of them, and it's a nice little moment of them supporting Mac, and oh, we're sorry, we're here for you. And there's that line, I can't remember from which one it is, it might be KJ, but the paper girls stick together, so that's quite cheesy, but a pretty good line. And yeah, in the end they confront the guy together, and they actually, give themselves up. And this is once again where it goes full-blown sci-fi, because they end up going on the ship, and they're talking to Parios. And I said before, then this show does look like pretty cheap and stuff, and you can see when they're in the inside of this ship then it does. But there's also just something quite nice and simplistic about the ship, where it's got like these basic sort of colours and a lighter sort of feel to it, and brightly lit sort of thing. But also then it just feels more like tactile, like the design of it, where it feels pretty old school, and as I said, pretty like basic. But yeah, it also looks a bit like, if you just imagine like this sort of like, just this, like, if you've seen like, I don't know, like Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, like that sort of, like the look of heaven in that type thing, or a heavily sort of feel, but like a spaceship, it sort of has that weird sort of mix. So I kind of got into that stuff, and there's a lot of running around, and Pyros in the end like does the right thing, tries to save the girls. It's like she sacrifices herself so that they can try and escape, and then like the soldiers come, and the leader guy comes. He's like, what's going on here? And they end up getting separated. They because there's like these vessels, these pods, where she like releases them for like two of them to escape, and they ended up getting paired off. Because what happened is, I think it's Tiffany and Aaron, they're trying to save Pyros because she gets shot, and at the same time Mac and KJ have gone in like a vessel, but Tiffany and Erin just run out of time, and the vessels get released. So you see them like run up to the glass, but the countdown has already started. They've already sealed the vessel, and the vessel leaves. So they're actually on the ship then, but they arrange for another vessel. Like it's a bit sort of flaky, but another vessel is like opened, and they actually get in the other vessel, and because it's sort of time's running out, like the guards have come type thing, and there's a lot of shooting back and forth, but once again, Parios, there's a theme in this show, Parios like an adult doing the right thing to save them and let them escape. So she in the end is quite coldly, like casually killed by the boss guy. But yeah, so the girls do escape, but they get separated. So this obviously opens up new possibilities for a season 2, should there be one, which I hope there will be. So you've got KJ and Mac being separated, and Tiffany and Erin, who we actually see, they land in, I'm assuming it's the 70s, just because they see a drive-in. Someone tell me in the comments. I think drive-ins sort of started either 60s or 70s, maybe in 50s. They do date back quite far, drive-in, so it could be as early as the 50s, I think. But the reason I think it's 70s is like because there's a David Bowie song playing, and normally they sort of have like appropriate music from the time. So, but yeah, I don't actually think of, I mean, certainly drive-ins were a thing in the 70s, but I did think there was drive-ins before the 70s, but I could be wrong about that. They possibly started then, but because of the Bowie track, I'm assuming it was meant to be the 70s. So yeah, that's a pretty cool way to end the episode, where the 4 actually gets split into 2, and you've got one group in the 70s. I'm assuming the other 2 are in a different timeline, because it seems a bit unlikely they would happen to land in the same year, but who knows. So I guess there's potential there with them being separated into 2 groups, but maybe being in different like timelines. So good stuff. That's Paper Girls season 1. I had a lot of fun with it. It's a nice easy watch with some good, pretty good atmosphere, some good mood to it, nice music, but also bits that are quite edgy and fun and pulpy and quite charming at times. There is something quite endearing about this show, and the characters and the cast really carry it in many ways. The 4 leads, I think, are very good and have good chemistry. So yeah, this was something which I maybe didn't have too much expectations going in, but it ended up working out very well, and I had a blast watching it. So I'm hoping there'll be more seasons because of the way this ends, and I know there are other volumes to the original comics, so I'm looking forward to hopefully a season 2 at some point next year, I'm hoping. So that's Paper Girls season 1 anyway. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Like and subscribe as always, and I'll be back soon with more. Thanks guys. Goodbye.